Two levels of Interstate 880 pressed together as one. Over 200 trapped, feared dead. Destruction spread over a massive area of California, but all agree this was not the big one.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight live from Oakland, California. A sunny Northern California day cannot conceal the shadows of horror and tragedy in the aftermath of yesterday's earthquake. In just 15 seconds, that big quake that registered officially 6.9 on the Richter scale rolled across about 100 miles. It killed at least 270 people, perhaps many more. It injured at least 2,400. Property damage is estimated at $1 billion plus. And the wonder may be that the toll isn't higher. President Bush quickly declared a 7-county region a federal disaster area. Some of the same people who advised the president not to go to Alaska immediately after the oil spill there advised him not to come here immediately, and he didn't. Not this day. His representative was Vice President Dan Quayle. And Quayle paid a brief visit to this spot. This is where over 250 people died, right back here on Oakland's Highway 880. Now, what happened on the highway was that the upper level of the highway crunched down on the lower level, trapping people in their automobiles. That's when more than 250 people died. Hundreds more were injured. One of the reasons it happened right at the height of the rush hour. One witness said, and I quote him now, "You could hear it all crunching down, but you couldn't see anything. It was just a big white cloud." And he added, "You could hear the screams of the wounded and dying." Workers labored all last night and all today, looking to see if they could find any victims still alive. CBS News correspondent Jerry Bowen has been with them most of the time and is back there now. Jerry?
Dan, ever since the earthquake last night, there's been an extraordinary effort here in Oakland to get a handle on the scope of the disaster, but it's not been an easy task. There are no firm numbers of survivors, only grim estimates.
The rescue effort on Oakland's 880 freeway last night was as unbelievable as the disaster itself. A mile and a half of double-decker freeway simply, suddenly, violently collapsing in seconds, trapping hundreds of motorists in the middle of rush hour.
I looked at this freeway, the whole thing started going, it just fell right down on all these people, and all they did is start hollering and screaming.
I don't know how the hell we're going to get them out, okay? We have one woman that's unconscious, bleeding from the head. She is breathing, she's got a pulse.
It wasn't known then, it's not known for sure now, how many people were trapped, dead or alive. What is known is that there were far fewer survivors than fatalities, and countless heroes, cops, firemen, just plain people from the neighborhood risking their lives to rescue strangers before the earth shook again.
I was back far enough where you could see it fall down, and you knew all the cars in front of it are gone. Ain't no blanket. But there's people that they're trying to save up there right now. They need our help.
Two kids up there, they're really hurt. They smashed between two cars, and in the front of they're in the back seat, but they smashed into the front.
At the end of his ordeal, one survivor applauded his rescuers and then went into shock. But he's alive, and so too is Judy Mack, in good condition at the hospital today.
First, I felt like I would die. We were pulling survivors out of places that most people wouldn't survive. We had areas where there was 1.5 feet space between the top level and the bottom level.
At sunup today, the nightmare was still there and getting worse. You could read it in the new freeway sign, spray painted in the rubble. DOA, 2 people dead here. 2 cars, MT, empty, no one left there. Search dogs and sensitive microphones were used in one final pass today as friends and relatives of people known to have been on the collapsed freeway stared at the rubble in shock, unwilling to believe the worst.
At this point, we don't know whether they're living or dead. We haven't heard from them, so obviously something is wrong.
Dan, the rescue operation officials just announced that they have not given up hope, but they also say that today's search turned up no more survivors. Dan?
Thank you very much, Jerry Bowen. The helicopters come and go, all part of this rescue effort. Now, effects of the earthquake were felt over a wide area, including as far away as Nevada and Los Angeles. But its sharpest jolts were scattered on sites in Northern California, severing vital arteries.
The Oakland Bay Bridge is a vital link in the area. Just hours before the earthquake, It carried the bus of the Oakland Athletics to what was to have been the third game of the World Series. Then the killer quake hit. A motorist on the bridge said, "First I thought my shocks weren't working. Then I realized the ground wasn't working." A 30-foot section of the top level fell. An amateur photographer took these home videos. At least one motorist was fished out of the water by a helicopter. Another motorist said she encountered what she described as hordes of people walking on the bridge. Officials told them to return to their cars, where they waited for about 2 hours before an exodus from the bridge was organized. Bridges throughout the area were closed. The one exception, the landmark Golden Gate Bridge. The one solid, dependable link across the water all through the earthquake and afterward. Game 3 of baseball's World Series was scheduled for Candlestick Park. It was postponed again today. As you fly by Candlestick Park, you're reminded the World Series probably saved lives. Remember, the earthquake happened at 5:04 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, normally the peak of the rush hour. But because of the ball game, a lot of people left home early and either came to the ballpark or went home to watch the game on television. No serious injuries were reported in the park, although a sellout crowd of 62,000 was in and around the stadium when the earthquake struck. But at least 2 areas of the ballpark were damaged, with a crack 6 inches wide running through an upper deck section. A stairwell nearby also collapsed. Even in this age of instant communication, details of the tragedy continue to emerge slowly, particularly from cities removed from the Bay Area. The center of the earthquake itself was in the Andreas Fault. And what may have saved lives is that the earthquake's major waves may have gone south, deep back into the mountains, rather than going toward the major population centers of San Jose, Oakland, and San Francisco. But at least 2 bridges in the Santa Cruz area collapsed, and landslides closed mountain passes outside that city. The epicenter was located about 8 miles northeast of Santa Cruz, which is some 75 miles south of San Francisco. But at least 2 people died in Santa Cruz, where an eyewitness described the scene as, quote, pandemonium. A U.S. Geological Survey scientist said today the earthquake was caused by the rupture of a 35-mile stretch of the San Andreas Fault. He demonstrated the effect by rubbing his hands together. Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, live from California. More about the destruction here, a successful space shot, and political upheaval in East Germany.
You have to drive it to believe it. The new Accord.
Everyone knows Dristan nasal spray starts to work fast, but just how fast?
Faster than Dolly can pick up a $5 tip.
Faster than a teenager can answer the phone.
Dristan nasal spray works fast to relieve nasal congestion, stuffiness, even sinus pressure. So if you want relief,
faster than tumbleweed in a tornado.
Try regular or long-lasting Dristan nasal spray. It's faster than...
Norman, what's that?
Nothing, honey.
I asked a simple question. Norman, are you eating something?
It's nothing, honey.
He lies like a dog.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch. Crisp golden flakes glazed with sweet honey and real roasted peanuts.
Irene, what's that you're playing?
Nuttin', honey. 2 can play this little game. Kellogg's Nuttin' Honey Crunch.
As we mentioned, the epicenter of the quake was south of San Francisco, roughly in the Santa Cruz vicinity. And remember, that's a very heavily populated area. CBS News correspondent Bob McNamara spent last night and today checking the still unfolding story of damage and casualties south of San Francisco.
It's 3 feet off its foundation. The stairs are moved over here and the whole house is over that way. It's buckled inside. It might be a total wreck.
Robin Clayton bought her house in Los Gatos just 5 months ago, and this morning a comforting friend was the first bright spot in a life suddenly shambled.
And we're mortgaged up to here, and we have no earthquake insurance, and this is the worst financial scenario imaginable.
Los Gatos, 60 miles south of San Francisco, took the quake hard. Half of its downtown business area is beyond repair, and a quarter of its homes are badly wrecked.
Oh, this place will have to be leveled. This is bulldozer material. There's no way you're going to save anything here.
Retired Marine Hal Dobson was in his house when the quake hit, barely escaping the porch collapse.
I've never been through anything like this before. I'd rather get shot at any day than go through this.
It was the cracks the quake shot through Highway 17's roadbed near Los Gatos that brought Caltech seismologists this morning to study whether the San Andreas Fault was the disaster villain. But the quake's cause is still a mystery to them.
We're not seeing any convincing evidence that the San Andreas Fault has broken at all.
It is near the few isolated pockets of damage at Santa Cruz that many experts believe the quake's epicenter was. Yet there are just 2 confirmed deaths here, and damage to other surrounding towns is minimal. And for worried relatives today, the message here was, most everybody's okay. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Santa Cruz.
In San Francisco proper, at least 9 people are reported to have died, and at more than 200 are reported injured. Areas of rubble and fire damage alternating with areas without signs of a scratch. Some of the scenes on the day after San Francisco shook and the lights went out. Frank Courier has been out in the streets of San Francisco.
San Francisco was wrapped in a smoky fog this morning as this fabled city awoke still trembling from the Bay Area's worst quake since 1906. Among staggering losses, some lost everything.
I lived here for 11 years. Nothing like this happened, ever happened.
In less than 40 seconds, whole houses collapsed. Cars were crushed. Roadways cracked and crumbled. San Franciscans today struggle to regroup.
Everything you own's there, so if you can't get it out and you haven't got insurance, you've got to regroup and start again.
I think we're going to be forced to leave. It looks really bad in there. I think it's going to be condemned.
Search and rescue teams using dogs and heavy equipment probed the ruins of collapsed buildings today in the hunt for more victims who might still be trapped in the rubble. This afternoon, dogs picked up on the scent of what may be survivors under a heavily damaged building.
Turn around and go! Get out of here! Not safe! These buildings are about to go!
After 5 people died in the collapse of a 4-story apartment house, firemen battled a spectacular blaze, one fed by natural gas leaks which destroyed 12 buildings in the Marina district. Today, firefighters were still dousing the smoldering debris with thousands of gallons of seawater from the bay.
It's too much watching the sidewalk open up and the house fall down next to you. It's too much.
Amidst power outages and deserted city streets, there was not a cable car in sight. Those commuters who chose to work today traveled toll-free across the Golden Gate Bridge. Still others chose to direct instead of drive through traffic. Despite the disaster and fears of an aftershock, people are conditioned here to rebuilding and restoring. A feeling that not even the biggest quake in more than 80 years can compromise the charm of this city by the bay. Frank Courier, CBS News, San Francisco.
I'll be back in a moment with more on the big earthquake, so stay here with us.
Well, you're fine. Anything else I can help you with?
My job. It's so lonely. No one to talk to, no calls, nothing. I'm just not needed.
What is it exactly you do again?
I'm the Maytag repairman. Oh.
At Maytag, all our washers and dryers are still built to last longer and need fewer repairs.
So, can you help me?
I'm a doctor, not a miracle worker.
Maytag. Dependability, people.
It's happening now. The Crab Lovers Festival at Red Lobster. King crab from icy Arctic waters, steaming, succulent. Delicate snow crab to dip, drip, and savor. And now get your taste of our sweet, meaty Pacific Dungeness. We've created 8 crab and seafood combinations starting at just $6.95. They're here now and only at Red Lobster. Friday through Sunday, try our crab and shrimp special, just $10.95.
Ooh, honey, don't come near me, please.
Oh, I can't. No, it's not a good idea.
Oh, no, baby, not right now.
Oh, sweetie.
You don't want to get too close.
Fight morning breath with Scope. Scope has 2 powerful ingredients to kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Kiss me.
What are you waiting for?
Great kiss.
You may kiss me now.
Scope, the best thing first thing in the morning.
In Washington, there's at least some debate about what the Bush administration is doing and isn't doing to help the earthquake-struck area, and what the president should be doing and shouldn't be doing. White House correspondent Leslie Stahl has our report.
Clearly reacting to the stinging criticism last month that his response to Hurricane Hugo was too slow, President Bush pounced on this disaster. Today, he went on camera several times to demonstrate his involvement and express his concern, and even scheduled a trip to the area for Friday.
But I can say that we will take every step and make every effort to help the Bay Area in its hour of need.
After signing a disaster relief declaration, Mr. Bush went on a tour of FEMA, the agency coordinating the federal relief effort.
Any buildings left?
The White House said that $273 million left in the Hurricane Hugo cleanup fund will be immediately diverted to California to help house the homeless and pay for repairs. But officials acknowledge that the president will have to ask for much more emergency money.
Here's the president. How is it doing out there?
Meanwhile, Soviet President Gorbachev, among other leaders, sent an offer of aid. As Mr. Bush was leaving FEMA today, he alluded to the harsh criticism of the agency in the Hugo aftermath.
I assure you they're responding very, very promptly now. I think they took a bad hit on that other one.
But officials say it will take several days before FEMA offices are up and running in California. One government source calls FEMA the leaderless agency. Mr. Bush has not named a director. In fact, of the top 7 jobs, he's named only 1, and he's not confirmed yet. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
I'll have some of the day's other news in a moment.
Subaru would like to apologize to the residents of Casa Grande, Arizona, where we drove the all-new Subaru Legacy at speeds averaging 138 miles per hour, 24 hours a day for over 60,000 miles. That's about 2.5 times around the world. Until we set a new world speed endurance record. If you're listening, Casa Grande, thank you.
After you've produced the yearly report in record time and made color part of your winning proposal, you'll know why Canon is the most popular copier in America. From personal to color laser copying, the choice is Canon.
Want to get wholesome and hearty instantly? Eat Nabisco Wholesome and Hearty Oat Bran hot cereal in apple cinnamon honey or regular. Instantly. The only instant hot oat bran. Delicious. Get Nabisco Wholesome and Hearty Oat Bran instantly.
If you thought you had to give up comfort to get a close shave, Norelco says, think again. Their revolutionary shaving system shaves skin close in a way that's incredibly comfortable. As the hair enters the chamber, the patented lift and cut system lifts each hair and holds it a split second before a blade cuts it, so it's possible to shave skin close without the blades even touching the skin. The lift and cut shaving system from Norelco. We made close comfortable.
The earthquake here in California even had some effect on the scheduled launch of the Space Shuttle Atlantis in Florida. An Air Force tracking station at Sunnyvale, California, was needed to monitor tonight's deployment of the shuttle's main payload, the little Galileo spacecraft, which is being sent off on a voyage to Jupiter. But the Air Force tracking station got up and running in plenty of time, so Bruce Hall reports now from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on today's successful rise of Atlantis.
Let's do it today.
3, 2, 1. We have ignition and liftoff of Atlantis and the Galileo spacecraft bound for Jupiter.
The shuttle thundered off the launch pad, threading the needle, finding a hole in the clouds, avoiding the rain showers.
You look marvelous going up. It's an incredible ride.
And there were spectacular pictures of the solid rocket boosters being jettisoned.
We're looking forward to a successful deploy.
The shuttle is now in orbit, where the astronauts are preparing to deploy the huge Galileo spacecraft on its 6-year voyage to Jupiter.
to take a close-up look at the mysteries of the solar system's largest planet. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Kennedy Space Center.
Housing starts fell more than 5% in September to their lowest rate since the end of the last recession 7 years ago. Analysts blamed rising mortgage rates during the month. They also said Hurricane Hugo was partly responsible for a sharp 15.6% drop in the South. Our major foreign story of the day again deals with the changing face of communism in East Germany. Aging, ailing hardliner Erich Honecker is out, succeeded by the youngest member of the ruling Communist Politburo. Alan Pizzi has our report from East Germany.
The end of Erich Honecker will be mourned by few here. Architect of the Berlin Wall, he ruled with an iron fist for 18 years. But it was almost certainly the pressure of waves of street protests, coupled with the flight of East Germans to the west, that forced the Politburo to dump Honecker. He was replaced by Egon Krenz, a younger but still Orthodox Party member who is not seen as a liberal reformer. A key question will be whether Krenz negotiates with newly organized opposition groups like New Forum. The government had expressed a willingness to talk about reform, but opposition groups were not convinced that Honecker was seriously considering changes.
Honecker's resignation should ease the pressure that has been building for change, but it's a safety valve that is unlikely to give the government more than a small breathing space. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, East Berlin.
In a moment, preparing for an earthquake, Susan Spencer reports on what worked and what didn't.
The Subaru Legacy L and the Mazda 626 DX. Which one is the bigger value? Well, the Subaru Legacy has a lot of standard features the competition doesn't, like more horsepower, power windows and door locks, four-wheel disc brakes, and an ETR AM/FM stereo. So, compared to the Subaru Legacy, it's obvious the 626 just doesn't measure up. Test drive the exciting 1990s Subaru Legacy.
There's no reason in the world why we shouldn't continue to do the things that we enjoy doing in life. Granted, we have the odd aches and pains. Well, my goodness, I mean, what can we expect at our age? But I find that if I have Bufferin, a cup of tea and a couple of Bufferin, and I can continue. And Bufferin, my brand of aspirin, allows me to do the things that I want to do. I really wouldn't be without it for that reason.
Bufferin, so you can do the things you want to do.
Life without cholesterol. Is there? Give up the best things in life. What's left?
Introducing new Miracle Whip cholesterol-free dressing. Now the best things in life are cholesterol-free.
Thank you!
Are your teeth sensitive? Do they hurt? Sensodyne toothpaste can help stop the domino effect that can start with sensitivity. Then pain can make you stop brushing and can lead to tooth loss. Sensodyne toothpaste helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
You know, the beautiful city of San Francisco has spent the 20th century living with fear, living in dread of powerful earthquakes. Through the years, planners have tried to make the city safe by, among other things, adapting the latest technology. But last night's disaster pointed out some deadly flaws in their blueprints, as CBS News correspondent Susan Spencer explains.
Paper here, folks. Earthquake special.
It was all anyone could talk about today in this city that has tried so hard to make itself earthquake-proof.
Some of the structures obviously did not stand up. I don't know when all of them were built, but some of those freeways are fairly new, so there will have to be an investigation.
But some engineers already are pointing fingers. Both the freeway exchange, where hundreds died, and the marina area, where more than a dozen buildings went down, are built on landfills. The marina, ironically, on debris from the 1906 earthquake.
All of that area is the area that turns to jello, and that's why, if somebody asked, why would we see this type of damage, that would be the first area I would look to.
Highway 880 had been part of a $50 million program to strengthen overpasses. Clearly not enough for a relic from the 50s.
There's no such thing as earthquake-proof, and what we keep finding out is what the engineers were doing in the 50s and 60s, in a lot of cases, it's just not good design, not good construction.
So, since the disaster in 1906, new building codes have gone into effect virtually every time the Earth has moved.
But now, as then, the codes exempt the old structures. The result?
I think the old freeways and the old buildings that don't have the flexibility are the ones that got hurt the most.
Far more surprising to many, the collapse of a section of the Bay Bridge, thought to be a problem with an expandable joint that just didn't expand far enough.
You don't think that a upper span would collapse onto a lower span and cars would be crushed and people would be killed.
Some city officials wish more were being said today about the structures that did not fall, insisting that San Francisco is living with its constant earthquake threat as well as any city possibly could. Susan Spencer, CBS News, San Francisco.
Well, as we're here among the dust and the noise of the rescue efforts here in Oakland's Highway 880, we're reminded again that as devastating as yesterday's earthquake was, and devastating indeed it turned out to be, it was not the big one that is someday expected to hit California. Quote, the big one would be at least 30 times stronger than Tuesday's earthquake. That's according to one expert authority. But believe me, this one was terrible enough. As the people try to put their lives back together, as the rescue efforts continue, as police try to keep order and try to keep down the little bit of looting that there has been, we're reminded that this one was bad enough, and that California has received its sharpest reminder yet that someday out there is the big one. Now, recapping our top story. More than 270 people believed to be dead. The reports that 2,400 are injured have now been scaled back to 1,400, but the truth is nobody actually knows how many people have been hurt. And my CBS News colleague Jerry Bowen is over there where the rescue efforts continue. Jerry, I think it's pretty obvious that this is going to take a long time. Anybody thinks this is going to be only a 1 week or even 1 month job is kidding himself.
Well, Dan, I think you're absolutely right. It's going to take a very long time. They've just now begun to haul in some of the heavy equipment. You may have heard the noise, a Sea Stallion helicopter hoisting a remote-controlled tractor to the top deck in the rubble. It's got a saw, and it's going to start working by remote control, too dangerous for anybody to operate it, to reveal some of the cars and some of the dead. New numbers, they estimate 100 vehicles. As you reported, in excess of 250 people believed to have died at this scene, although confirmed dead. Bodies that they have taken away, number 7.
Jerry, out there south of San Francisco and Oakland is a very heavily populated area, and you have to believe that the death toll will go up, the injury toll will go up, and so will the property damage figures. Well, that's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather reporting live from Oakland, California for the CBS Evening News. Now stay tuned here, because coming up soon there'll be a special program on the California earthquake. That'll be on this station at 7 Central Time. So see you again soon.
This is CBS.